The Galactic Council's training facility on Station Kepler 442 hummed with the nervous energy of 100 different species preparing for disaster response certification. Nia wiped the sweat from her brow, her human physiology already adapting to the station's artificially balanced atmosphere. Beside her, Mathless checked his equipment with the casual precision of someone who had done this 1,000 times before. "First time at certification?" asked a Valerian instructor, its crystalline form refracting the station's pale blue lighting into rainbow patterns across the metallic floor. "First time here," Nia replied with a grin. "But not our first rodeo." The Valerian's confusion at the idiom was palpable, but before it could inquire further, the facility's alarm system began its synthetic wail. All around them, cadets from dozens of worlds straightened, their various appendages, tentacles, and limbs snapping to attention. "Attention all certification candidates," boomed the station's AI. "Earthquake disaster simulation will commence in 30 seconds. Proceed to your designated safe zones. This is a Level 3 difficulty drill. I repeat, Level 3 difficulty." A ripple of concern passed through the assembled candidates. Mathless caught Nia's eye and shrugged. Level 3 sounded arbitrary without context, but they'd trained for worse back on Earth. Hell, they'd lived through worse. The countdown began. Around them, species scattered with varying degrees of panic and precision. The Quilxons with their 6 legs skittered toward reinforced archways. The gaseous nephrons simply dispersed their molecular structures, making themselves less vulnerable to physical trauma. The reptilian Scarths, known throughout the galaxy for their military prowess, moved in tight formation toward designated zones marked with their species' biosignature. Nia and Mathless moved toward a human-designated area, but something felt off. The station's gravity fluctuated slightly, a preliminary tremor that most species seemed to find alarming. Several candidates were already activating emergency beacons, their training kicking in at what they perceived as genuine danger. Then the simulation truly began. The floor buckled with a violence that sent unprepared candidates sprawling. The artificial gravity generators cycled through random intensities, simulating the chaotic physics of a planetary earthquake in space, a theoretical scenario that most species found nightmarish. Structural supports groaned as hydraulic systems deliberately stressed them to their limits. Lighting flickered, plunging sections of the facility into darkness while emergency strobes created a disorienting strobe effect. Nia stumbled but caught herself against a support beam that was shaking with programmed intensity. "Decent simulation," she called to Mathless over the cacophony of alarms and the sounds of candidates crying out in their native languages. "Better than the San Francisco trainer," Mathless agreed, helping a fallen Quilxon back to its feet, all 6 of them. "At least this one has safety protocols." Around them, the carefully controlled chaos intensified. Sections of flooring retracted to simulate collapses. Harmless but realistic-looking debris fell from ceiling compartments. Temperature fluctuations made the air shimmer. For most species present, this was the most intense disaster scenario they'd ever experienced, even in simulation. The Valerian instructor from earlier materialized nearby, its crystalline structure vibrating with what Nia had learned to recognize as stress. "Humans, why are you not in your safe zone? The simulation parameters exceed—" Its words were cut off as another violent tremor sent it sliding across the tilted floor. Without thinking, both Nia and Mathless moved. Years of actual disaster response training on Earth, a planet that seemed determined to kill its inhabitants through geological tantrums, kicked in with automatic precision. Mathless caught the Valerian before it could shatter against a bulkhead, while Nia secured it to a stable anchoring point with emergency tethers. "You good?" Nia asked. The Valerian's glow pulsed erratically. This is merely a Level 3 drill. Level 5 would be unthinkable." Mathless and Nia exchanged glances. Level 3, this was Level 3. The simulation continued for another 8 minutes, an eternity for most of the candidates. When the all-clear finally sounded and the station systems returned to normal, the scene was one of barely controlled chaos. Medical teams were already attending to candidates suffering from shock, panic attacks, and minor injuries from falls or collisions. The Scarth military cadets, despite their reputation, looked shaken. Several nephrons had dispersed so completely they were having difficulty reconstituting their forms. The head administrator, an elderly Corinthian with deep purple skin and eyes like liquid mercury, floated to the center of the assembly hall. Its expression was grave. Candidates, I regret to inform you that 73% have failed this certification. The earthquake disaster response protocol requires maintaining composure and functionality under extreme duress. Those who activated emergency distress beacons during a clearly designated drill have demonstrated inadequate preparation. A murmur of dismay rippled through the crowd. For many, this certification was years in the making. The Corinthians' eyes swept the room and landed on Nia and Mathlis. However, I must note that candidates Nia and Mathlis not only maintained their composure, but actively rendered aid to other candidates and an instructor. This is exemplary. Nia raised her hand, her face genuinely confused. Sir, I'm sorry, but I have to ask, that was just a drill? That was the simulation? The assembly hall fell silent. Every species turned to stare at the two humans. The Corinthian administrator's expression shifted to something unreadable. Yes, candidate Nia, that was a level 3 earthquake disaster simulation, one of the most intense training scenarios in the Galactic Council's certification program. Mathlis laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine surprise. Oh, wow. Sorry, sir, back on Earth, we have actual earthquakes that are significantly more intense than that. We've both been through the real thing multiple times. That felt controlled, safe? The Valerian instructor, now recovered, pulsed with an urgent yellow hue. You're saying your homeworld regularly experiences geological events of that magnitude naturally? That magnitude? Nia tilted her head, mentally comparing. That was maybe a 5.5, maybe 6.0 on the Richter scale. Yeah, several times a year in some regions. The big ones, the 7.0 and up, those are the ones that really test you. And you simply live through them. The Corinthian's voice held a note of something that might have been awe or horror. Without evacuation? Without planetary emergency protocols? Well, yeah, Mathlis said. We prepare for them, sure. Better building codes in some areas, earthquake kits, that sort of thing. But they happen, you deal with it, you rebuild. Earth's an active planet. Earthquakes, hurricanes, tsunamis, volcanoes. You learn to adapt. The silence that followed was profound. Species that had trained for years to handle theoretical disasters were realizing that humans grew up treating such events as inconvenient but manageable parts of life. The Corinthian administrator's laugh was like wind chimes in a storm. They said the drill was too harsh. They said level 3 was pushing candidates beyond reasonable limits. Its mercury eyes fixed on Nia and Mathlis with new understanding. And the humans asked, wait, that was a drill?